Hi, it's Emily Leapart from Art from the Heart, and today I'm sharing a bat mitzvah card I made for my son's classmate. I wanted to make something quite fancy and special, so I'm going to use Concord and 9th vintage flower stamp set and coordinating dies. You can see the gorgeous details in the stamp set, and the coordinating die comes with two pieces, one to cut out the entire image and another one which cuts around the petals on the flower to provide lift and dimension. I want to use the phrase Mazel Tov to express congratulations for this happy and significant occasion, so I'm going to use the perfectly penned stamp set to create that custom sentiment. In order to center that sentiment and gauge where the vintage flower will be stamped, I'm going to create a mock-up of the sentiment on a scrap piece of paper. I use the letters from Perfectly Penned, a small acrylic block, and Altenew's Coral Berry ink pad to stamp out Mazel Tov. Then I use my design ruler to make sure the sentiment is centered on the panel. I follow the mock-up to stamp the sentiment directly onto the panel. I could stamp the flowers first, but I find that if the flowers are stamped and I make a mistake on the sentiment, then I have to start over or live with the mistake. If I stamp the sentiment first and I make a mistake on it, or if it's off-center, I can easily recycle the panel and start over. After the first word is finished, I bring in the mock-up to make sure my spacing is not too far off, and I find that it's pretty accurate, so I can keep going. The recipient's favorite colors are pink and rose gold. Once the sentiment is complete, I can position the flower and stamp it twice by flipping the panel. I stamp the flower twice using Altenew's Embossing Ink and pour gold Tinsel embossing powder over it. I flip the panel and do the same before setting the images with my heat tool. I know I say this every time, but it's really satisfying and beautiful to watch embossing powder melt into the ink, especially when it's this sparkly. The recipient's favorite colors are pink and rose gold, so I chose a combination of pink distress inks and complementary teal distress inks to watercolor my images. The details in this image make it super easy and quick to color, so I'm going to put on some music and fast forward through this section. After the watercoloring is done, I can go ahead and die cut the flower itself. This die is so easy to place. I hold it down with removable tape and run it through my Platinum 6 die cutting machine. Here's what it looks like after I've die cut the flower on both ends of the panel. Isn't it so stunning? Concord and 9th is one of the most innovative stamp and die manufacturers, and this die certainly proves that. This die cuts around each of the petals so accurately and makes it so realistic. I just love it so much. I hadn't tried this with heat embossing, and I was wondering how it would do with the thickened lines. It's truly amazing, and I'm blown away by the results. Now I'm going to give the panel some depth by sponging around the edges of not only the panel itself, but also around the edges of the flowers to help frame the sentiment. I'm going to use the same colors I used to color the flower, starting with the lightest shade, which is Tattered Rose. I'm using the life-changing blending brushes for a softer look. I switch back and forth between the larger and smaller brushes for accuracy and focus. Then I switch to worn lipstick to deepen the color around the flowers. Next, I'm going to add shimmer spritz droplets on the panel by tapping on the nozzle. The droplets will react with the distress ink and wick away color, but also leave behind shimmer. I use a paper towel to absorb the excess. When the panel is dry, I'm going to add bits of foam tape to the back to keep all the petals lifted once it's attached to the card base. After I've added the foam tape, I can add score tape to the rest of the panel to ensure everything stays in place and the water panel doesn't warp on the card base. I remove all the backing and attach the panel to the card base. Next, I use a pair of scissors to help lift and define the petals. I do this for both flowers, and now my card is done. Here's a look at the finished card. I'm absolutely in love with this card, and the best thing about it is that it was made with minimal supplies, basically one image and a customized sentiment. It's the gold tinsel embossing and easy watercoloring that really makes it pop, along with the amazing die-cut details, of course. This design could easily be reused for so many different occasions. Be sure to visit my blog for all the details, more photos, and a full supply list. Thanks so much for watching!